And so in crystallizing on the audit procedure aspect, we want to look quickly at audit evidence. Because remember we said as auditors, at the end of the day, we are supposed to issue an auditor's report, which is going to be expressing the opinion we have on the financial statement. However, the opinion we have on the financial statement depends on the evidence that we are able to gather through the audit procedures that we undertake, analytical procedures, inquiry, observation, inspection, and then recalculation and reperformance. So those are the procedures we're going to be undertaking, which is also premised on the assertions that we are testing for. And so if you look at the whole thing, we need to express an opinion on the financial statement, and we'll get into this as well in a moment. We need to express an opinion on the financial statement, but the opinion we express on the financial statement depends on the audit evidence that we have gathered as auditors. The evidence that we have. But the evidence that we have depends on the audit procedure or procedures that we have undertaken as auditors, and the procedure we are going to be undertaking will also depend on the assertions that we are testing for. Okay? Being tested. And so this is what I mean by we trying to bring everything together. That opinion we are going to be expressing will be expressed in the independent audit report, and we'll get into that as well in the discussion in a moment. So we are going to be looking at, based on what we want to do, test for a certain assertion. The way we test for the assertion is through carrying out the audit procedures. As we undertake the audit procedures, we are going to be gathering evidence, and the evidence will help us to reach that reasonable conclusion as to what kind of opinion we can express in our audit report. So you see the way the thing is, and we are going to be crystallizing all of these things today, and because this you see here is a 35 marks area that will be waiting for you in the exam hall. And so let's look at audit evidence briefly. Audit evidence. What is audit evidence really? As we said, it is the information that the auditor gathers, right, which will be recorded in the working paper. It is going to be recorded in the working paper. And so we're going to be getting or discussing also later audit documentation, because everything you are gathering, every understanding that you are getting must be recorded. And that is done in the working paper. And so the audit evidence can simply, for one-liner definition, I'm coming in from the book on page 135 of my book on the subject. So those of you with the book, page 135, that's where I'm coming in from. Audit evidence can be defined as the information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusion on which the audit opinion is based. So back to my diagram. The audit evidence helps us to reach that reasonable conclusion on the kind of opinion we are going to be issuing in the audit report. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is it that the auditor must see to reach that reasonable conclusion? In other words, what are the characteristics of audit evidence that will help the auditor to say, oh, we have audited the sales cycle of the entity. We've audited the closing inventories. We've audited the property, plant, and equipment. We've audited the trade receivables, and we are concluding that it's okay or there is a problem. How does the auditor get to that point? Two key things. The auditor is required to obtain sufficient, appropriate audit evidence. Stay with me carefully. Before the auditor says, okay, I think I'm okay, whatever I want to know, whatever I want to see about this entity, I have seen it, about this transaction, I've seen it, the evidence must be sufficient and also must be appropriate. What the heck do we mean by that? Sufficiency of the audit evidence simply means the auditor gathering enough evidence. So, is the evidence that we have gathered enough to reach the conclusion on the subject matter in question? So, sufficiency of audit evidence measures the quantity of audit evidence. The quantity. Appropriateness of audit evidence, you want to look at that as the quality of the audit evidence. Appropriateness simply means that the evidence must be reliable and relevant. That's why I spoke to you about the fact that we want to obtain information from knowledgeable third party, people who have information about the subject matter under discussion. So the evidence must be relevant and reliable. Okay. So how do we know that, this evidence we have obtained on this subject matter can be relied upon or is appropriate? So the reliability of audit evidence has some features that we need to understand. So the following generalization about reliability of audit evidence may be useful. 1. The reliability of audit evidence increases when it is obtained from independent sources outside the entity. This is what we mean. Let's say we are auditing the company, right? Let me come back into my slide here. We are auditing the company, and we are auditing PPEs, property, plant, and equipment. Based on analytical procedures, we've realized that the value of PPE has gone up significantly. Okay. So we go to next step, inquiry. So we ask management the reasons for the increase in the value of the PPE in the current year financial statement. Then they said, we revalue the assets. Okay. Then we got to probe further. Who the heck did the valuation? Then they say, the valuation was done by the board chairman. He is an asset valuation expert. So he was the one who led the team to be able to do the valuation of the inventory, the PPE. No, we can't accept that. Why? Because the board chairman is not independent of the entity. He stands to benefit, and it could be fraudulent. So one company, valuation, so company A, valuation is done by the board chair. Another entity, B, the valuation is done by an independent valuation company. Which of these two will you reliably fall on as an auditor to get an assurance that really this is an accurate valuation of the asset of the entity? The B, the independent accounting firm. Now, does it mean they will not make an error, or they may not commit any mistakes? Or they could, but because they are independent, they are outside of the entity, we can rely more on their evidence than what the board chairman did. That is what we are saying here. So, appropriateness, the quality, the reliability of the evidence, 1, when it is obtained from an independent external source, more reliable. 2, the reliability of audit evidence that is generated internally is increased when the related control, including those over its preparation imposed by the entity, are effective. Remember, we've been talking about internal controls, how the entity carries out various activities. So if we come and we've tested the controls and the internal controls are working effectively and efficiently, then various things that they've done in the financial statement can be relied on. Like we spoke about the sales cycle, if you remember, last 2 weeks. We spoke about the sales cycle. When we started with audit planning, understanding the client entity. And we did the vouching process, put a dummy transaction in, and everything works well. Then we don't have a problem. So that data is internally generated, but we can rely on it because after testing the controls are working efficiently and effectively. However, if the entity's internal controls are not efficient or adequate or effective, then the internally generated info, our reliability will not be that certain. One thing you must understand as auditors also is that it's not all items that we can confirm from someone outside the company. So there are a lot of the things that will be internally generated, and you have to rely on it. But what we are saying here is that our reliability on what management is telling us, what management has recorded in the financial statement, increases if we test the controls in respect of those subject matter issues and they are effective and efficient. We have no problem. It means all is well. 3, audit evidence obtained directly by the auditor. Example, observation of the application of a control is more reliable than audit evidence obtained indirectly. So audit evidence that we obtain directly because we attended, like the inventory count issue. We attended the inventory count. So we sit down. We are looking at the way the inventory count is being done. Okay. The right number of people, the accounting in order, everything is done. That is more reliable than we asking somebody to tell us about how they count their inventories. So we are talking about two things here. Let's say an inventory count. Closing inventory is a crucial element that we audit as auditors. So scenario A, we couldn't attend the inventory count, and so we just asked maybe the storekeeper and the procurement officer. We asked them, hey, how did you guys undertake the inventory? Oh, we went there, we had enough people, we counted all the inventories well to make sure everything is there. This is the bin card in which we recorded all the inventories. You can check and look at it. Okay, that's like a quick one answer story. But scenario number 2, you are there yourself. So whilst the counting is going on, you are not there to help them to count. Like why? Whilst the counting is going on, you are there yourself. Okay, per their inventory counting manual, do they have the right number of people? Are they counting in the right order? Did they count all the inventories? Were there any inventories they did not touch at all? That evidence you obtain firsthand yourself through observation of how the inventory count is done will be more reliable than what the procurement or the store officer, storekeeper tells us. That's what we are talking about here. So although the inquiry is a procedure, and you are inquiring from the storekeeper, the procurement officer about how the inventory count was done, and they are giving us an answer, that answer or that evidence will not be as reliable as if we had rather observed the process ourselves. So in that circumstance, yes, inquiry is a procedure. We can ask them, but observation beats inquiry under that circumstance. Because what we see ourselves, gather ourselves directly through observation is more reliable than what we ask people and they furnish us with. Who knows? They could be lying. Say you are not there. So whatever they tell you, that's what you're going to take. That is the idea about that point. 3, or the next one, documentary form of evidence is more reliable, than oral evidence. Yeah. That is why I keep on telling you, and last week we emphasized on this as well. Even when we are asking management about something, right? So, for instance, we did analytical procedures and we realized that, the PPE has gone up. So, we want to see the finance officer, the chief finance officer of the company, and we sit with him. Then we are asking him, we observe in your financial statement as compared with your last year's report and then the budget, we have realized that maybe your PPE has gone up by 40%. Can you explain to us what accounted for that? So the finance officer is going to be saying his things, explaining things to us. Now, as he is talking about the possible reasons for the increase, we are documenting, we are writing. At the end of the meeting, what we have written, we will present it to him to confirm whether this was what he meant. And the finance officer is required to sign it so that that becomes part of our working paper. So that is why documentary evidence is more reliable than what? Oral evidence. Because later on, if something comes, he could say he never said that. But now, we have made him sign. And he had confirmed that this was what he said. He read through. And he has signed. And his signature is on that document. So when something happens later on, after we finish our audit, we can present that as an evidence that we asked the finance manager. And this was his response. And we concluded that, okay, there was no way we could verify or confirm what he was saying. So this was what helped us, or what we used to reach the conclusion on the evidence that, or the opinion that we expressed on the financial statement. Nobody can do us anything. But if it is oral, he can come and say, I never said that. I never said that. So sometimes, even in addition to the write-up, in some environments, the conversations are going to be filmed or recorded, like an interrogation when you are arrested or taken to, IOCO, FBI, and those places. The interrogation is going to be recorded so that electronic evidence is there, can be played, can be referred to, that this is what you said when I asked you this question. And that is better than somebody just said something. Later on, the person can come and say, I never said that. That is what we mean by this particular point. All right. So whether it is in paper form or electronic form or other medium, is more reliable than evidence obtained orally. Next, audit evidence provided by original document is more reliable than photocopies. Right? So, for instance, we are looking at the fact that the finance officer said, the reason why the PPE went up is because the entity bought some assets. Okay. Where are the title documents? Then they said, the title document of all our assets are with our lawyers, but we have the photocopies here. We don't do copies. Where the heck is the original documents? So, in that case, we have to request from them to speak with their lawyers so they can bring the document for us to see. Because photocopies can be manipulated, right? But our original document with the seal of whatever authority or whatever it is cannot be manipulated. That is why original documents are more reliable than photocopies. These are some of the points that you must understand when we talk about what the auditor considers when we are talking about reliability of an audit evidence.